Hi, Bro Workman here, and welcome to this session of Workman Wisdom. Today I want to talk about, as we've been talking about the listing process this month, I want to talk about one of the most important things that we do as salespeople. Oftentimes we talk about sales as a process, and there's a process we go through, and we forget about the most important or the most critical part of the sales process, the part that I like to call BRT. Now, BRT stands for building relationships with trust. Building relationships with trust. If you take the time to really get to know people and build a relationship, then the sales process is much easier. The difference between slick or slimy salespeople is found in taking the time to build the relationship. When you really understand who people are and what they want, then instead of selling them something, you're providing a solution to their problem. So let's talk for just a minute about what BRT really means and how do you do it. It starts by being interested and not interesting. Now think about that for a second. You ever meet someone and all they want to do is talk about themselves all the time? That person feels like they're very interesting and they all want to talk about who they are, what they do, what makes them different, and they lead with themselves. Well, a salesperson that is interesting, that is constantly talking about themselves, is not interested in finding out what the client wants or needs. And then they have a really hard time connecting with them on a deep or personal level. Being a great salesperson is about being interested, not interesting. Be genuinely interested. The second part of building great relationships is to find common interests. Oftentimes you'll do this when you're walking the house or when you meet them for the first time, or you look at the kind of things that are in the yard. Let me give you an example. Walking into a home and seeing pictures on the wall of their kids in skiing, or seeing pictures of beautiful mountains where they've gone hiking, or noticing that they even have children or family members, looking at the kind of cars they drive, looking at the art that they're attracted to, how they communicate with each other, their style. When you find something that you can relate to, then you should hone in on that individual item. So let's say, for example, I'm a father, I have children. If I walk into a home with someone and I notice that they have children, immediately I'm going to find common ground or common interests on what we have in common with our kids. Now, I have 6 kids ranging from 27 to 9 years old. I can pretty much relate to anybody that has children in any age group. And now I've got 5 grandchildren, all 5 granddaughters, and I can talk to people that have grandchildren. So if they have children or grandchildren, I'm going to take a minute and I'm going to relate to them as someone who's coming from a place that's similar to where they are. Hey, I understand why you want to move because you need a bigger house for your family, or you want to downsize because all your older kids are getting married, whatever that is. I'm going to spend some time getting to know them genuinely. And not because I want to sell them something, but because I genuinely care about them. And once I understand who they are and what interests them, then I'm able to cater my presentation to be more comfortable to them. The next piece is, once I've found the common interests, I would then want to build on those common interests. I want to spend a little bit of time on that. Now, I'll talk about personality types here in just a minute, but different personality types either will or will not engage in that general conversation. And so I want to understand who they are by asking a few questions, looking around the home and seeing what's there, and then engage on those common interests. By doing so, it then begins to build this phenomenal interaction in building relationships with trust. And last and not least, I want to make sure that I understand what's important to them. Now, so how do you find out what's important to someone? I mean, do you just kind of do it through osmosis? No, you listen. There's a reason that God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth, and that's so that we can listen twice as much as we speak. I want you to listen to what they say. When you ask questions to them, really listen to the answer, but also listen to the meaning behind the answer. If it's important to them, it should be important to you. Oftentimes you might hear a client say something like, paying a low commission is really important to me. Is that really the most important thing to them? I have found that very rarely the amount of commission is not the real objection. The real objection is making sure they get value for the money they pay and how much is left in the net sheet at the end of the transaction. And somehow they believed through past experience that a lower commission is going to help them accomplish that goal. And the reality couldn't be further from the truth. So take time with every prospect before you ever go in and sell yourself to make sure you follow BRT. Build strong relationships with trust. The next part that I want to share with you today is I want to talk a little bit about disc profiles. So as we build relationships with people, as we get to know them, now, if you really want to become masterful at your craft as a listing agent, or a lifting agent, whichever, if you really want to become masterful in your craft as a listing agent, you have to really understand how to identify different personality types. Now, some people think that using personality types during the sales process can be manipulative. I absolutely could not disagree more. Understanding that there are different personality types, taking the necessary steps to find out and identify how people respond and behave naturally, and then catering your presentation to make it comfortable for them, I believe is the best way to honor the client. So making the presentation comfortable for them based on their personality type is honor, not manipulation. So let's take a minute and understand the different personality types. D, I, S, and C. Now there's a lot of different types of, there's colors and there's the Wilson learning system. There's different people that have come up with different profiles. We use the DISC profile. You can go to workmansuccess.com/DISC and you can take a free DISC assessment if you want to know where you fit. A high D is really simple. So if I go into a D personality type, that's the driver. The driver, the CEO. A high D personality type oftentimes will greet you before you even knock the door. They come up, they see you pull up in front of the house, they open the door and they're like, "Hi, come on in, I'm Verl." And then they greet you and bring you inside. The D is going to be less likely to engage in small talk. These are oftentimes CEOs. They're the ones that want to be in charge. They want to ask all the questions. Understanding you have a high D, your presentation is important. They want to know you have answers to all the questions. They just don't want to see all the details. That's how you deal with a D. An I is the interactor. That's the life of the party. That's the party person. The party person or the I personality is someone who loves the interaction. What you want to do with an I personality, and they are ones that greet you with high enthusiasm. It's like, "Hey, welcome, come on in. Oh, I'm so glad you're here. I heard about such and such from such and such." Oftentimes the I's want to make sure that we know some of the same people and we have the same level of energy around their home. Listen to the I's, let them talk. Now you have to be careful with I's because sometimes they'll go way off and you won't be able to get through your agenda. So with I's, take a minute to get to know them, really understand who they are, build that relationship of trust. With an I, it's much easier because once you find common ground, they automatically will like you. Be interested with your high I's. The S is your supporters. The S's are supporters. They're also amiable. They're the kind of people that if you come in aggressively and you treat them with your D personality, they're going to withdraw. They're going to crawl under the table if you try and make a decision right now at the moment. The S personality type is hard to get to know, but once you get to know them and you really break down that barrier, they become lifelong, very loyal clients. The S's oftentimes have the most influence. The D's have the most power, and the I's talk about it the most. The C's are your high analyticals. They're your thinkers. The C's want to process everything. I guarantee that when you have a C personality type, you're going to walk in the home and things are going to be organized. You're going to see things set up the way that it should be set up. They are going to have a plan in their mind of how things can go. They will have done all of their research. They will have looked at Zillow and Trulia and Realtor.com. They will have looked at comparables. They might even created a spreadsheet based on analysis of where they think the property should be priced. Your job with a high C is to honor their research, ask them for their opinion, and then share with them what you know to bring the two of you together. Making sure you understand the personality types and then changing your presentation style to honor them is the greatest form of sales. It's when you make sure that you care about your client enough to build a relationship, you understand who they are, and then you adapt your presentation to be able to make them comfortable. Now, you want to make this really fun? You'll find that opposites attract. In most families, you have a high D and you have a high C. And so you've got to be able to adjust your personality, you adjust your presentation to be able to help the high analytical wife and the high D husband come together on an answer that serves the family the best. I love sales. I love the sales process, and more important than sales in the sales process, I love the opportunity I have as a salesperson to really get to know and connect with people on a personal level. So remember, build your relationships with trust. Take time to get to know them, and then honor them by catering your presentation to their personality style.